The link between violent videos and crime.
Research is taking place and it will show.
So-called video nasty.
These films not only affect young people,
My mum don't really let me, but I watch them when she's not in.
but I believe they affect dogs as well.
Knowing that children are likely to see
Caught up in the video nasty, scared.
Wave of moral outrage.
Films without certificates
on a list circulated by Scotland Yard
in our societies.
have been seized on video.
Blaming horror movies.
We don't believe in constraining the media.
Hello again! It's nice to see you, and thank you for joining me for this episode 3 of the Video Nasty podcast many are still calling that one with that British bloke on it.
Let's get the band back together.
A stomach-churning, week-by-week deep dive half a century back to the forgotten era of visceral VHS. A look at the 100 or so movies from the time when police and prosecutions swept the British suburbs, and for a few short years before the Video Recordings Act banished the worst to the wheelie bin of notoriety, film fans could be simultaneously delighted and depraved by an influx of some of the most gore-filled horror movies in history. Last time, we were running around a decrepit Staten Island mansion being chased by tool-wielding housekeepers in Andy Milligan's 1968 The Ghastly Ones. But today, we have the delights of, well, a movie from the same year which, for many, has become the touchstone and even shorthand for the best horror and sustained terror can get. George Romero's Night of the Living Dead. The film New Yorker critic Pauline Kael called one of the most gruesomely terrifying movies ever made. And when you leave the theatre, you may wish you could forget the whole horrible experience. Here's the trailer.
Welcome to a night of total terror. Night of the living dead. The dead who live on living flesh. A night with the dead who cannot die. A night of total terror. The living whose bodies are the only food for these ungodly creatures. An experience in shock more shattering than your strangest nightmare. Night of the Living Dead.
Man, oh man. So, let's hurry through a few production details before we start. It was directed, of course, by George Romero, who also worked as director of photography. Romero wrote the script alongside John Russo. It was cut together by Hugh C. Daly and Romero himself, and the delicious special effects came from the makeup box of Marilyn Eastman and Carl Hardman. It stars Dwayne Jones, Judith O'Dea, Marilyn Eastman, Carl Hardman, Judith Riley and Keith Wayne in its main cast. And if you weren't at the picture house being terrorised and wrung out by this, you might have chosen instead that year screenings of Bullet, the classic comedy The Odd Couple, or be watching Clint Eastwood give it the full squint and growl in the western Hang 'em High. So, once more, let's double lock the front door, lights out, grab a cushion to hide behind, and get within grabbing distance of a box of Maltesers, and let's go with 1968's Night of the Living Dead. We open on a low budget. It's black and white and 60s looking, grainy film stock, library music pulled from a file probably called The Best of Scary Dun-Da-Da Orchestral Tunes Volume 3. Something's either up or it's about to be up. It's Anytown, USA, a remote agricultural highway, all spidery dead trees and old farm buildings. Could be anywhere. It's actually Pennsylvania, but I'm pretty sure that even in 1968, Pennsylvania, the second state to join the Union, considered itself the definition of could be anywhere. The credits state that this is going to be an Image 10 production, a company still going today, although pretty much like many one-hit wonders living off its sole glory and still peddling Living Dead trivia. The music supervisor has decided to fade in some eerie sci-fi theremin to unsettle us some more, and what's this? A dull saloon car, a boxy 1967 Pontiac Le Mans idles past us on the road, two folk inside, and the oddly perfunctory titles appear, giving us the matter-of-fact Night of the Living Dead over more woodland and blank winter pasture. No dripping blood, no gory splashes. What follows, as we watch the car continue, enter a cemetery with what looks like a bullet-pocked sign, are your basic Image 10 production credits. Makeup, props, special effects, hairstyles. And standing there like a lone student film project entitled Cultural Symbolism, a fluttering US flag. Let's meet the drivers. At the wheel, Barbara. Youngish, 20s I'd say, standard 60s garb when everyone dressed like their parents the moment they left college, flat centre parting, bit of a raincoat, sensible low heel. In the passenger seat it's Johnny, or what you'd get if you ordered wise-ass pen-pushing ad-exec desk jockey putts from Etsy. Dark suit, neat geek parting, a spotty tie, pocket protector, heavy specs, cigarette, you get the picture. We learn, through some clever snappy back and forth, that these are brother and sister, driven up for 3 hours to visit the old man's grave and put some flowers down, as demanded by a frail old mother who won't make the 6-hour trip herself. He's whining, she's sighing, he's bored and wants candy, she wants just to get the whole thing over with. He can't understand why they don't use the same flowers every year, and can't even remember what his dad looked like. If you have a younger brother, you'll know the type. In fact, if you have an older sister, you'll know the type. I have both, since you ask. Some smart dialogue tells us summer is coming to an end, so we know it's light to save on camera costs, but it's still about 8 PM and will be dark soon. The car radio is playing up a hint of something bigger than them out there somewhere. A flat 1960s manly broadcast voice giving crackly, "Testing, testing," and "back on the air after technical interruptions." Still, let's get it done. They pile out and start the search for the headstone to dump the bouquet. Thunder claps. As they wander and Johnny goofs around, they spot a loomingly dark-suited figure walking slow and stiff a few plots away. Seemingly lost? Drunk? The two reminisce and recall silly teasing and hijinks as kids when Jay would tease B. Like the tiresome office wag, Johnny puts on his spooky Peter Lorre voice and starts giving lots of "They're coming to get you, Barbara," like a knob. Brothers, eh? "Here he comes now," he continues as the solo stranger lumbers dully towards them. We see him now up close, older, 40s, shabby and torn clothes, pale skin, heavy creased face. And then, from nowhere, he's on them! Lurching, attacking and grabbing, he wrestles Johnny, suit tearing, glasses flying, struggling among the stones. They tumble and flop like men in a real fight. No Hollywood punch-up this. Remember when Hugh Grant and Colin Firth slapped and toppled in Bridget Jones? It's sort of more like that. But whoopsie! As Barbara screams and gasps, Johnny goes down with a crack! Temple catching the edge of a stone. He's out cold. The composer reminds us this is terrifying with a lot more orchestral dun 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 dun. So we're just 6 minutes in and 50% of our cast are down. Barbara, hysterical, makes a desperate run for the car, half terrified for her life and half scared of abandoning her brother to his fate. The figure stumbles after her, determined, clawing. She trips, shoe lost, stumbles up to the car, locks the door studs. His grey, tormented face is at the window. He's pulling and slamming, a crazy wide-eyed but blank face, desperate like a sick dog. He grabs up a fist-sized rock and shatters the passenger glass. He's climbing in, Barb fighting him off. Struggling with the controls, Barb manages to get the car to pull away. Thundering brass and timpani accompany her as she swerves and lurches through the cemetery, sliding the car up against a tree with a screech. Breathless, she's out of the car and running. In the distance, the figure lurches madly after her with dead steps. Onto a road, Texas Chainsaw style, with all the dun-dun-dun music giving it plenty of elbows and strings. She hurls her way down the tree-lined tarmac. But what's that between the trees? Over the hill, a house. Plain, white and simple, and outside it, a fuel pump. Heaving herself forwards, Barb gets through the brush, to the steps, to the porch, to the door. Slamming breathlessly, she searches around the house, but he's still coming. A back door? She's into the home. Inside, it's darkly underlit, sparse and spare, shot with gothic, expressionistic shadows at Burton-y angles. Slams door behind her, thunder and woodwind surround her. She is alone. We only hope help is at hand. Barbara explores and we follow. It's a simple house, a farmy house, gingham and lace and dark wood and lino. She takes her kitchen knife from a drawer and creeps room to room. It's untidy, papers scattered. The owners may be left in a hurry, some furniture knocked over. On the walls, a deer head stares. On the floor, an animal rug lies. To the window, Barb peers out. The dumb grey figure is still there. A few dozen yards from the porch, he seems to be confused by the washing line, like a shell-suited executive middle manager on the Crystal Maze. Stunned, but practical, Barb is at the phone, rattling the connectors in that way that I've never really understood. The line is dead. She checks the window again. Oh, Lord, it seems that the ruckus has gathered a gawping crowd, like a Covent Garden mime. Outside are more pale, drunken figures, looming and lurching. Oddly, they're all in suits, so it looks a little like a convention for fans of The Jam, or a stoned reenactment of Reservoir Dogs. Desperate for help, Barb decides to check upstairs, only to be stopped in her tracks by, what appears to be a half-eaten, decomposing, rotten remain of a human skull. Body still attached, one wide, gnawed eye staring. Whoa, that's enough of that shit, and Barb is back down the stairs, only to be suddenly blinded by the piercing headlights of a new car arriving. Thank Christ! Through the door he comes, and we feel we can somewhat relax. Young, black, male, and healthy, in a smart shirt and tidy crew cut, he looks like the type you'd want on a camping trip. Armed with a tire iron, he fights off the grabbing monsters behind him, pulling them away from a terrified Barbara. Locking doors, cautious and methodical, it appears this ain't his first growl. Don't worry about him, Ben says, thought his manly Ben, our hero. I can handle him, probably a lot more of them when they find out about us. Ben is now very much in charge, a man with a plan. He moves about the rooms purposefully and deliberately for the next few minutes, talking fast, talking solutions. His truck is out of gas. Is there a key to the pump? He's checking windows and doors, moving furniture, setting up. He's calm but firm with dumbstruck Barbara, but he can get nothing from her silent, shell-shocked face. Ben's up the stairs, searching for people, searching for weapons, searching for the key to the fuel pump, but Jesus! He stumbles over the corpse on the landing. We've got to get out of here, he says, not predictably for the last time. Blood from the corpse drips from the banisters, splashing onto a trembling Barbara. What's happening? She repeats over and over, understandably so. We'll talk later in this piece about the making of and the direction, script and the pacing, but just to say this, at the 15-minute mark, it's terrific. I mean, really something. Sparse, edgy, twisty, relentless. We are in very safe hands here, and it's a simple but terrifically handled setup, which Romero is having all sorts of carnival fun with, pulling out the jumps and tricks of a huckster taking you on a penny thrill ride. Anyway, enough for that. More film studies nonsense later. Outside the farmhouse, we can see the reservoir dorks, lurching and gurgling, stumbling and moaning, smashing their car lights like thugs. Inside, Ben is desperate for information from Barb, but she's giving up nothing. She's all limp and empty. Oh, it's just too much. But there's no time for that, as the enemy is now, as the poet once said, at the gates. The undead ghouls, as I think we're going to call them for this, have got in. Ben figuratively tears off his shirt and bellows by the power of Grayskull as he proceeds to go medieval on their ass. Punching, pounding and thudding, he bruises and bashes and beats the figures one after another as they crawl over him and all over the house. Boom! Thwack! Kapow! Adam West's Batman would be proud. It's bony, it's crunchy, it's squelchy, and if this is what the cinema goers have come for, then it's just what the doctor ordered. Imagine punching fistfuls of Lego into a rotten melon. That's kind of what it sounds like. A tire iron to the head of one, pow! A thwack with wood on the other. Barb can only gather her pale legs under her coat and cower on the couch like a maiden. The ghouls are of every stripe, men, women, old, young. One has a dressing gown in the manner of a zombified Arthur Dent on the search for his towel. As the last of the intruders are beaten back, bashed and battered, we see over Ben's shoulder another half dozen slowly lope and limp, dead-eyed across the lawn to the warm light of the flimsy house. So now we're in it. For the next few minutes it gets very practical. Doors are locked, bodies dragged out of the front room, a corpse is hauled out by Ben to the front porch where he douses it and sets it alight in a scorching white blaze, causing the timid ghouls to back away like animals. We see them gaze and cower up close for the first time. Now, this is no Walking Dead zombie grossness. There's no skeletons or exposed jawbones. It's just ragged, torn and sparse. Pale scars, wounds and scratches. If these are the corpses we've been promised by the ghoulish titles and leering posters, then they haven't been dead long. Most are dressed in shabby but ordinary day clothes, like they're just taking a break from a day at the mall. Inside, Ben remains busy, yelling fast orders like a general. Lights on, searching for tools, hammers, wrenches, some nails and bolts in a box in a drawer. Barb is too limp, too frail, for which Ben has, unfortunately, no time. He almost loses his temper, barking at her to gather wood, to gather furniture. The plan? Board themselves in. We have to work together. You have to help me, he demands. Eventually, she agrees, but in that pathetic, limp-wristed Fey manner, which makes Sissy Spacek look like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. While Ben tears up skirting and piles planks, stacks wooden drawers, and begins to hammer up the windows, Barb shifts idly from handing out flimsy planks to just staring transfixed at the innocent charm of a simple music box in a way that would make you want to slap her. Honestly, it'd be like getting a sleepy heroin addict to play Jenga. Won't be long before those things are back pounding their way in here, Ben says. They're afraid now. They fall into the plodding process, sharing stories of their circumstance as hammers pound and the wood stacks up. Thinking Barb is the owner of the house, Ben's inquiring about the resources. Beekman's Diner down the road? That's where he found his truck. He listened to the radio. The things attacked a gasoline truck. He saw the truck moving in a funny way. They were catching up to it. Slammed on my brakes. He wrenches and saws table legs as he talks, tossing them into the fire. Went right through the billboard, ripped through the gas pump and never stopped moving. By now it's like a moving bonfire. He continues, vivid and shell-shocked. Still hear the man screaming. Talks of the huge numbers of them, 50 or 60 of those things just standing there. He's half narrating, half what? Looking for forgiveness, redemption? I just wanted to crush them. They scattered in the air like bugs. Now it's Barb's turn to explain her story. She warms up a little as the fire in the grate crackles. We were riding in the cemetery. But she cannot recap the horrors without reliving them. As Manly Ben continues to board up and barrier the doors, Barb just gets hysterical, ashamed and traumatized and so confused. We've got to wait for Johnny, please. She begs as Ben closes the house to the world. Oh, he's had enough of this feeble whimsy, and now he loses it. This is no Sunday school picnic. Your brother is dead, and slap! Right pow to the kisser. He cracks her with an open hand. Overcome, Barb goes down, thud to the floor, and Ben carries her fainted body to the couch. A short respite, as Romero uses every trick in the budget storytelling book to bring us up to speed. As Ben hammers and sets up their safe haven to hopefully just sit out the horrors, he finds a radio. With whistles and crackles, he tunes in. We begin, as messages and reports come and go, to get a growing, terrifying realization of what awaits them in the outside world. A masterstroke of world building that conjures up images of carnage, horror, and widespread chaos. Again, we'll deconstruct this later, but much like a radio play, it allows us viewers to create our own personal images. Classic, crackly 1950s, stern, hasty sounds.
The facts. An epidemic of mass murder being committed by a virtual army of unidentified assassins.
Ben keeps hammering the wooden panels. Outside, more figures lurk by the car, swaying and gurning. The announcers are at a loss to explain or give us more details.
Best be described as mayhem.
They drop phrases like
Easton and other states,
like
National Guard
being
mobilized at any moment.
There's stern reports of police
military action.
We listen and watch Ben in silence, tearing curtains and creating torches with wooden table legs. Why these don't immediately burn up when you light them at the top, by the way, I don't know, and I've never known. Just an aside, torn rags, gasoline, wooden stakes, from Frankenstein to Indiana Jones, it seems to be a cinematic torch technique. Does this shit work? I don't know. Anyway, another time. As the radio burbles and tension grows,
the safest course of action is to simply stay where you are.
We freeze, as at this very stay where you are moment, Ben opens the door and paces out to the front yard, torch aloft. He lights an armchair, kicking it over, the ghouls retreating, fearful. More radio.
Presidential cabinet for a behind-closed-door meeting.
Something about
White House spokesmen and
chattering typewriters over
latest dispatch.
Those listening will notice the plot twists here as, what's they saying? The closed-door meeting would include NASA? Dun dun! And definitely, duh! Ben continues purposefully, but thankfully not with silly, cinematic Home Alone bear traps or Heath Robinson, Rube Goldberg gizmos, just plodding, protect and survive, government, duck and cover pamphlet advice. Nails, board, hope. Fantastic. Time passes, tension builds. What is outside? Because now we can't see. Doors are blocked, windows boarded. Barb awakes, groggily. Ben sits. He draws tensely on a cigarette. It began
2 days ago with the report of the slaying of a family of 7.
Ben is all up and at him. He can't sit still, cupboard to cupboard, searching and bustling for food and rations and... What's this? A lever-action rifle. Oh, here we go! You remember when a blood-soaked Bruce Willis goes weapon to weapon in the Pulp Fiction pawn shop? Hammer? No. Baseball bat? No. Chainsaw? No. Samurai sword? Boom! Yep, that's how this feels. Ben clocks the rifle. He fumbles for a box full of shells. Here we go. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. He brings Barb some shoes. Thoughtful, putting them on her. We ought to be all right here for a while. He's a great guy. He explains he's going upstairs. We're now 37 minutes in. There's about an hour to go. So let's up the ante even more with an end of Act 1 twist. Ready? They're not alone in the house. Dun dun dun! From the basement door, a ruckus, a bang, a clatter, and now the room is full. 2 more men, yelling, cursing, shouting the odds. Ben is furious. Who are they? They didn't come up and help? What, they didn't hear the screams? But you said you heard the ghouls attack. Get your story straight, man. Let's meet these two newcomers. First, we've got the elder man, Harry. Think of a sort of an angry Jack Lemmon, or Burt Young's Paulie from Rocky, but with more of a nagging wife and a mortgage. Balding, insecure, a bossy, bureaucratic little man, picket fence Republican busybody, all cigarettes and sweat patches. Next to him, Tom. Younger, plainer, mid-20s college type, but now the yelling and alpha posturing and racial tensions and masculine panic explode.
All right, why don't we settle this, mister? We came up, okay, we're here. Now I suggest we all go back downstairs before any of those things find out we're in here.
All the dispute spots upstairs. They won't be hard to fix.
You're insane. The cellar's the safest
I'm telling
place.
you, they can't get in here.
And I'm telling you, those things turned over our
Harry
car.
wants to board everyone up in the basement, safe and secure. His wife Helen and her child Karen, plus Tom's girlfriend, are all down there. It's the safest place. Ben is louder, angrier. Oh, and he has a gun. He wants to stay up here. Escape routes. It's locked down, not boxed in. Chest bumping, finger pointing. Hell, goddammit! And a couple of, now look here, misters. Bob can only gape as the tough guys try and take the lead to take charge. But suddenly, it's every man for himself, as the ghouls are back. A dozen figures lumbering and lurching outside by the car. Smash! They reach through the window, hands and arms grasping. Tom is stabbing and cutting their hands with a pocket knife, tearing flesh. Ben's shotguns, bang, 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 reload, bang! But as Jeff Wayne and Richard Burton warned us, still they come. Confused, lurching, bang! A shot to the head takes one down and out. Bang! And now they come in hordes. The music builds, timpani and strings. 10 more, 20 more, some naked, others in flappy hospital gowns, thudding, relentless, marching towards the light. Face flesh, torn and sore, some pick and gnaw on a tree bark. In the house, the arguments escalate. Cellar! No, board the windows! No, cellar! No, board the windows! It rises to panic. Harry wants to take Barb down with them and bring all the food too. We got her right! Ben is standing firm. It's tough for that kid that her old man is so stupid. Bold and fierce, they roar at each other as the ghouls continue to bang and thunder at the splintering doors. But Ben, if you'll pardon the vernacular, ain't gonna die for no idiot Whitey. You can be boss down there, I'll be boss up here. Tom's girlfriend Judy comes up to join Barb and Ben. Finally, Harry retreats down the stairs, boarding himself, his wife and his child behind the wooden cellar door. The house is split. Time to take sides. Downstairs, not a happy home life. The fruit cellar is quiet and well lit, roomy and stocked. On a workbench, young Karen lies, sick from her earlier attack. Harry and his wife Helen bicker snidely, snatching at cigarettes, arguing and sniping. These two have not been in love for a very, very long time, and have dropped even the pretense of companionship. Harry is insufferable, Helen bored and spoilt. It's important, isn't it, she snarks, lip curling, for you to be right, for everyone else to be wrong? Clearly, it's not their first row about this. Helen wants the radio down there. Harry is stubborn, faithful to the idea of submission. He knows his place. If the authorities know what's happening, they'll send people for us. They'll tell us what to do. Harry is desperate to cling to the status quo. It's where he eats, it's what he knows. The alternative? Take his family upstairs? His wife to some black guy? We can feel that tension. We may not enjoy living together, Helen snipes from within her starchy, tweedy coat, but dying together isn't going to solve anything. But suddenly, an olive branch, a reconciliation, some shared ground, or, well, a television anyway. Something they can all, as it were, get in front of, but also get behind. They call out from upstairs. Caring duties are swapped and the ladies move positions. Helen smokes, Harry snatches one. A boxy TV is hauled in, big dark wood thing with the wiry rabbit ears. The men fiddle, knobs and wiggles. They tune it in to the news and they gather, hushed, to hear more. Now it's pure television, hyper-real TV news and reporting. Eyewitness accounts, men in heavy glasses, Cronkite style, tappy-tap of ticker tape and typewriters. Formal and somber, the news breaks. National Civil Defense in Washington. Persons who have recently died have been returning to life and committing acts of murder. Arising from funeral homes, morgues and hospitals, it seems the unburied dead are seeking human victims. The government have a new plan. Rescue stations, food and shelter, and National Guards. Stay tuned for details on your nearest station. Despite this supernatural, horrific turn of events, the house is too frantic and scared to debate the physics. Immediately hearing of these rescue stations, Ben is keen to get in the truck and get to safety, but fuel pump is locked. But idle thoughts nag among them. Why are space experts being consulted for an Earth emergency? The TV talks of a recent satellite shot to Venus, destroyed by NASA when it was found to be radioactive on its way home. Back around the all-knowing TV, the group watch, mouths agape, as an army spokesman is caught by a walking reporter outside the majestic Capitol building. The reporter thrusts his heavy microphone at the brassy five-star general type.
Everything is being done that can be done.
It's all cameras and hats and snappy suits. They dodge the details, ducking into a staff car. As they do, the ticker tape on screen reveals
Willard Medical Center.
They recognize the name. That's just 17 miles from here. So, here we are. Just 30 minutes more to go. A group, a challenge, a goal. Heroes, villains. Who will make it out alive? At this stage, we're obviously rooting for the good guys, and let's face it, if Harry and Helen get chomped, well, too bad. Poor Karen is better off without them. But, no time for that. Let's go. The arguments explode once again, chests bumping, fingers pointing. How can they escape? They've a sick child, and 2 women! Yes, it is 1968. And another woman out of her head! The place is surrounded! But Ben takes charge again, moving the folk about. Meanwhile, news burbles on, suits and big framed spectacles, sturdy and frowny and firm. Talk of
cadavers moving.
Dead, limbless, eyes open. In the busy basement, the women swap their caring roles about. Still lying on the workbench, the young girl is in pain. It's getting worse. The TV experts are now saying bodies must be cremated.
The bereaved will have to forego the dubious comforts a funeral service might give.
Quietly, the horrors mount, plodding and mundane. There's no more hammer horror, it's just plain, dull explanations. Boffins, ties, suits, clocks on the newsroom walls. But a plan must be made. Fuel, trucks, rescue centres. But hell, how to get the ghouls clear from the house? Ben goes full Hannibal Smith with his orders and his strategy. Kerosene, bottles, keys for the gas pump, fabric to cut up, Molotov cocktails, clear a path, get the truck fueled, get everyone to Willard. Good old Tom is happy to handle the truck. The 2 younger men begin to unboard the door. Let's move it. Poor Harry is very frustrated. Things are moving on without him. And who is this guy, making him look bad? Tom and Judy discuss the escape as they cut up fabric for fuses to use in the bombs. She's not convinced. Are you sure we're doing the right thing? But, like Harry, Tom has grown up listening to experts, to advice, to those in charge. The TV said it's the right thing to do. They discuss the town of Willard. Remember, they've been before when there was that flood. Judy's scared. They hug. Meanwhile, Harry wants Barbara downstairs in the cellar for her safety. What awaits outside? Freedom? Death? We've not seen outside for a good while. Judy and Tom exchange pained, longing looks. Oh, for this all to be over. Outside, the numbers are growing, and ghouls surround the home. But boom! The first Molotov. Boom! Another! Harry is heaving the glass bombs from the windows upstairs, each one with a musical dun-dun-dun as it crashes. The ghouls moan and flee. Boom! More light. Boom! More flame. Quick, Ben and Tom battle their way out. Ben waves the rifle. Tom clambers into the rusty truck. But no! Terrified and desperate, Judy can't bear it and squeezes past to burst outside to be with Tom. God damn it! Determined, Harry just locks her out. She's trapped. No man's land. Ben lays his torch down on the lawn, jabbing and pushing a burning table leg at the incoming crowd. Into the back of the truck. Ghouls claw forward, but with a whoosh of flame, Ben lights them up. Wow! A dazzling glare of crackling flame as they scatter and flail, still grabbing at the old vehicle. With a rev, the truck heads off, music thundering, chassis bumping. In the house, panicky Harry moves from window to window. At the gas pump, it's fingers and thumbs and panic as Tom struggles with the key. But blam! Hero Ben fires off the lock. Yes, you can almost feel the fist pump from the audience. Go on, Ben! But whoopsie, what, easy there. Tom, careless and panicked, is splashing and sploshing gallons of spilt fuel all over the truck. Watch the torch! But whoosh! The side of the truck ignites. Now, Mission Impossible fuse style, the fire begins to creep across the dirt floor, following the spilt fuel towards the pump. Tom and Judy floor it, tearing away from the pump, but the back of the truck is ablaze. Ben yells warnings. Harry's just transfixed, aghast. Ben beats away the flames from the pump in desperation, but no good. Boom! The truck stalls. Judy's jacket is caught. The couple struggle to escape the cab of the truck, but boom! The whole truck ignites in a blaze, frying a screaming Tom and Judy. And still, the groaning, moaning ghouls approach. At the pump, blam! Ben shoots one down, rifle in hand, flaming table leg in the other. What a hero. Swiping his torch back and forth, keeping them at bay, he sprints, stumbling back to the house. But inside, Harry has other ideas and is firmly locked the door. There's banging, thumping, yelling. Ben is desperate to get in, but Harry won't budge. He's fearful for his own family's safety. Ben steps back and pow! Creatures stumble and lurch onto the porch just feet behind as the door splinters from the gunshot and he clambers in. The men have a standoff. In the face of their own Armageddon, they glare at each other, seething with terror and rage. But the fight must take a back seat as they take a brief moment to unite against the foe and desperately board up the door again together, still scowling wide-eyed at each other. Whew, I wouldn't want to be Harry once the door's fixed, I'm telling you that. And I was right, staring at each other in silence, trembling tension, and pow! Smack! Punch! Whack! Bam! Ben punches the Batman shit out of Harry. All over the house. I ought to drag you out of there and feed you to those things. It's an absolute barroom bare-knuckle pasting that's an absolute joy to watch. And relax. The house, for a moment, takes a breath, but there is a long night still ahead. Outside, the creatures approach the truck, pulling and pawing in the shadows at the crispy remains of the charred bodies, drooling and gnawing on the bones, fighting over intestines, livers and hearts, wide-eyed, chowing down like it was fried chicken on a Friday night. In the house, the group sit around, waiting, silence, brooding. Ben loads the rifle noisily. Practical as ever, he asks, "Is Willard the nearest town? Can they get that car turned back over?" "It's a mile away." Harry still fights his corner for leadership. "You're going to carry that child a mile with those things out there?" Harry asks. "I can carry the kid," sighs Ben. Of course he does. He asks about the injury. "She's been bitten. Now it's talk of a disease. Is she carrying? Is she too weak to walk?" There's more noise outside. The novelty of the barbecue fried dinner has worn off. The TV is back on. More news of the mysterious radiation steadily increasing.
Dead bodies will continue to be transformed into the flesh-eating ghouls.
But hell, USA, USA. Now news reports show Butler County, Pennsylvania have a posse rounded up. That's more like it. Hicks and trucks and rifles and backy-chewing redneck lynching types. Straw hats, marches, turn-ups and work boots. Reporters talk to the chief backy-chewing Confederate hard-ass in charge, McClellan.
Yep, ghouls can be killed by a shot to the head or a heavy blow to the skull.
As he chews and talks, little pork pie hat bobbing, braces stretched over his beef-filled tum, crew-cut Vietnam youths, dads in fleecy denim, trucker caps, and furry corduroy, dangling fags and Stetsons surround him. He breaks off to yell instructions like he's at a barbecue with bullet belts, or as they say in the US, just a barbecue.
Beat 'em or burn 'em, they go up pretty easy.
He's convinced they can wipe them all out in 24 hours. Back at the farm, it's going from bad to worse. Boom! The lights go out. Fuse, a power line? Harry wants to take over, blaming Ben for the deaths. He needs to be in charge, he needs that rifle. But the creatures are at the porch. Wooden banging, slamming and thudding. Boom, bang, crash of glass. Strings and music frenzy up as the ghouls break in again. Fights, punches, beatings. The rifle drops. Ben struggles with the boards as Harry goes for the gun. He orders Helen to the cellar. The men struggle over the weapon until bump! Ben shoots Harry. Down he goes, limp. The wooden boards are smashed, splintered, hands and arms grabbing. Harry struggles, bleeding, to the cellar steps, through the doorway, tumbling. Karen is still on the slab. He crawls over to her sick body. Upstairs, the chaos and horror is relentless. Arms, boards, screams and grabs. Downstairs, well, Karen has died, but awoken, and wounded Dad has no defense. Mum comes downstairs. "Karen? No, oh baby!" The child kneels over her dead dad, his arm ripped off. She calmly chews on the dismembered limb, bloody stump aloft like a picnic chicken leg. Spotting Mum, Karen discards her supper and grabs up a sharp trowel. "No, no!" Mum screams. But no, down the trowel comes, hard and heavy. The sound of sort of chopping cabbage, psycho-style, slashes over and over. Echoey screams, the blood splashes and drips. Upstairs, the barricades begin to collapse. In they come, the ghouls dead-eyed and blank, relentless. They drag Barbara away to eat. Ben helplessly fighting as Karen emerges dripping with gore from the cellar. Ben pushes her to the couch, hauls ass to the cellar, bolting the flimsy door behind him. Now the house is overrun. Amok with ghouls, furniture tumbling, they claw and bang on the cellar door. Inside, Ben is desperately boarding and blocking. Behind him, however, dead, but presumably still a lunkhead, Harry begins to rise. No more Harry. Ben gazes at the mess of the wife. She stirs. eyes flickering. Bang! She stirs no more. Ben loses his cool at last, kicking over chairs, helpless and trapped. But focus, still planning, still thinking. He hunkers down with the gun, aimed at the top of the stairs. Upstairs, they're wandering, dull and lifeless like bumper cars. It's next morning. Dawn breaks over the farmland. The dead silhouettes of trees. Birds sing. A lone helicopter thumps overhead. Across the fields, a cordon of men in a search party line, armed and ready, stride the field on their hunt. It's McClellan's killing party. Now we see hunting dogs, sheriffs, marshals. Everything's coffee cups and cigarettes and TV crews. They're checking out a house over there. Everything appears to be under control. In the house, Ben stirs. He was sleeping, exhausted. Can it be? Hope? The sound of dogs above. Gunshots. The cops are trudging slowly, dropping occasionally to a knee. Bang! Picking off straggling ghouls in their ones and twos. They pass the burned-out truck and remains. Someone had a cookout here. Bang! Bang! They pick off more ghouls, emerging from the woods into the daylight. Nick, Tony, Steve, get out in that field and build me a bonfire. The boss, pointing and yelling. Ben slowly climbs the cellar stairs and unlocks the door. He comes to the window, holding a rifle, peering out into the squinty sunshine. There! Hit him in the head! McClellan snarls, right between the eyes, and... Down Ben goes. Good shot. Okay, he's dead. Go get him. That's another for the fire. And now it's stills. War footage style. Meat hooks, boots, faces. Dead bodies piled high. Ben's corpse carried. And finally, woof, the pyre goes up in a blaze like a dry straw wicker man. Music. And we fade to black. Well, now we're talking. Seriously, this is what it's all about. I believe it was movie legend Roger Corman, House of Usher, Pit and the Pendulum, Little Shop of Horrors, who would always give the same advice to new filmmakers. In order to learn the trade, the techniques of getting a movie made, make a low-budget horror. Take a group of people, trap them somewhere remote, and just kill them off one by one. I'm paraphrasing, but I think this was his general advice. A low-budget horror is simple enough to write, easy to direct, you can get your friends to be in it, you only need one camera, one weekend, one location, and you can kind of learn how it all gets done. Now this is good advice. Just ask Amy Holden-Jones, Tom Holland, or Clive Barker, whose first features, The Slumber Party Massacre...
One thing's for sure, no one's getting any sleep the night of The Slumber Party Massacre. Close your eyes for a second and sleep forever.
Fright Night.
What would you do if you accidentally discovered the house next door was occupied by something not human?
And Hellraiser.
Because within these walls, the unholy is unleashed.
Taught them precisely that. Or hell, why not ask the always chatty Quentin Tarantino, who did exactly the same single location pick-em-off cheapie with a crime bent with his debut, Reservoir Dogs.
Hear your names. Mr. Brown, Mr. White, Mr. Blonde, Mr. Blue, Mr. Orange, Mr. Pink.
Why am I Mr. Pink?
Because you're a faggot, all right?
This trope has always been terrific horror fodder, be it a haunted cabin, Evil Dead, an Arctic research centre, The Thing, a distant space cargo ship, Alien, or a boat. Jaws, there's nothing quite as simple or as satisfying as a mixed group of characters, a hero, a coward, a bombshell, the nerd, the joker, and just locking them somewhere.
And the first thing that I'm going to do when I get back is to get some decent food.
I can dig it, man. I'll tell you, I've eaten birds food and this, but then I taste it better, you know what I'm saying?
For a killer, a robot, alien, zombie, vampire, or whatever, to terrorise them all night.
Don't touch it! Don't touch it!
When George A. Romero decided to set aside his advertising job and shake things up, his career and ultimately the world, embarking on his 1968 zombie horror movie with a script inspired by the 1954 book I Am Legend by Richard Matheson.
The last man on Earth lives in a fortress.
What day is it anyway? Monday? The hell it is, it's Sunday.
But initially planned apparently as a comedy, he could not have possibly known the impact it would have. Shot with investors' money, who were contacted and hyped up and offered a slice of the profits, Romero and his new production company, Image 10, gathered $114,000. There was an appetite for bizarre cinema, and thankfully enough doctors and dentists with savings who fancied a credit, maybe an acting part, but more importantly a slice of the burgeoning cheapy horror genre. Armed with cast, crew, cameras, cars, and an old Pennsylvanian farmhouse, he and his team set up shop and created what Paul McCulloch of Take One calculated to be the most profitable horror film ever produced outside the walls of a major studio. Within 10 years, the $114,000 outlay had created between $12 and $15 million at the US box office, dubbed or subtitled into more than 25 languages, and released across Europe, Canada, Australia. Night of the Living Dead grossed $30 million internationally. Why? Because George Romero, with no more experience, equipment or budget than most amateurs at the time, simply had created a script as tight as a drum and gathered a cast who could play tension, suspense, horror, violence with earnest, straight-faced honesty. In fact, to return to Tarantino, who was asked about Living Dead's success, they're amateurs of the best kind because they love acting. What made Romero such a terrific filmmaker was he was a legit regional filmmaker, and what made it special was the slightly homemade quality to the movie. Romero knew, as Spielberg proved with his giant shark a decade later, and Ridley Scott demonstrated with his elusive alien, that keeping the monsters off screen and filming reactions, noises, bangs and screams with merely the glimpse of a creature meant the audience would fill in the blanks. Low budget meant Romero had no choice but to use every shortcut and sleight of hand in the book. The most impressive of these is his reliance on radio and television to create a horrific, blood-stained, panicky, chaotic Armageddon outside the four walls that the audience conjured up in their own imaginations.
Because of the obvious threat to untold numbers of citizens, and because of the crisis which is even now developing, this radio station will remain on the air day and night.
The old saying that radio has the best pictures has never been truer. Official sounding reports, stern newsreels, those ticker-taping typewriters and on-the-spot interviews suggest hints at a world just behind the door, just over the rise, that has gone to bloody hell.
We repeat, these are the facts as we know them. There is an epidemic of mass murder being committed by a virtual army of unidentified assassins.
We don't see the president or the NASA experts, the survival camps or exploding oil tankers, but we know they're there, and it grips us all with this cold hand. Not since Orson Welles recreated that Martian attack with panicked reports and hysterical eyewitnesses on Mercury Theatre Radio back in 1938.
We now return you to Carl Phillips at Grover's Mill.
Yes, it is. Now they've parted, and the professor moves around one side, studying the object, while the captain and two policemen advance with something in their hands. I can see it now. It's a white handkerchief tied to a pole. Wait a minute, something's happening. Humped shape is rising out of the pit.
Had media and monsters married with such, if you'll forgive the alliteration, menace. It wasn't my first viewing of this when I set it up with headphones and a laptop on a pub table one Tuesday night. I had a couple of hours to kill before delivering a pub quiz in my hometown, so with a pint of Naked Ladies bitter and some caramel cashews, I snuggled in to enjoy the tension and thrills. It had been a while, however, since I'd seen it in full, and it does have everything. To be honest. Yeah, easy to criticise now as relying on corny tropes, graveyards, lumbering zombies, jump scares, torch-wielding heroes. One has to keep in mind that many of the shock and thrill techniques we're now all too familiar with from countless rip-offs were being tried and tested for the first time on Romero's set. The screaming, hysterical single woman on the empty road, running and crying as she's chased, hands thrusting through broken windows, rescuers being attacked as they're mistaken for the monsters, a creepy, tinkly, childlike music box playing eerily against the silence. Romero also knew how to steal and borrow from the best. There were touches of Hitchcock's Psycho in the DNA of Night of the Living Dead, with its black and white, dumb-staring, stuffed taxidermy looming like woodland witnesses from those walls. The incredible photography that creates death-dark shadows and blinding moonlight as characters shift from dark to light, heroics to hysteria, and of course from moral righteousness to moral cowardice. The early death of a hero, hell, even the fruit seller and skeletal family members nod at the Hitchcock classic. We've seen it all since, but little could have prepared 60s audiences for the energy and the audacity of this gory home invasion romp.
Is there a fruit seller here?
Yes.
We need some bottles or jars. Make Molotov cocktails and hold them off while we try to escape.
Tone-wise, it's about as far as one could get from the thundering, blood-red, drenched zombie movies audiences have grown to know. Shot in that black and white to keep the costs down, it has the Pathé newsreel, on-the-spot broadcast quality that adds a touch of that foundy, footagey feel. This is ably assisted, as I said, by a cast who are playing it dead straight. The belief that this is documentary rather than Hammerhouse theatrics is enriched by the bare-bones script that he's given us, which is all too rarely seen. Smart people making smart decisions as the creatures begin to pound and punch the barricades.
There's a big can of kerosene down there.
I'll see what I can find.
I'll look for the bottles. There's a big key ring down there. There may be a key to the gas pump on it.
This is not a movie of silly risk-taking, wandering around in fraternity underwear, exploring spooky basements, or silly dumbass slasher decisions. The cast do what we would do. They abandon a broken car, they lock the door, they try the phone, they stay low, they hide in the basement. They try and get news from radios and televisions. They're just smart people in a terrifying situation, just as it should be. In fact, tonally and attitude, the nearest movie I can think of that has the sweaty claustrophobia of Night of the Living Dead is not a horror movie at all.
Watch them and pray, for someday you may become one of them. 12 men with the smell of violent death in their nostrils.
What's the matter with you guys? You're letting them slip through our fingers.
I'm just saying it's possible.
And I say it's not possible.
But one could easily enjoy comparing and contrasting this with Sidney Lumet's single-room legal thriller 12 Angry Men. You got the coffee cups, the sweating, everyone's vicious and a bit snarky. In fact, if the 12 Angry Men, all shirt sleeves and humid bickering, was about a dozen guys arguing how to keep zombies out, then you'd have Night of the Living Dead. Essays have been written on its subtext, of course, a subversive film that critiques 1960s American society, an insight into international Cold War politics, a comment on domestic racism. Film historian Robin Wood and later critics discussed the film at length as a commentary on repressed sexuality, on the marginalized groups of 1960s America and the disruption to societal norms resulting from the civil rights movement and the Vietnam War, an idea echoed by Elliot Stein of The Village Voice and film historian Sumiko Higashi. Some see Ben's death as a direct reflection of the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. Mark Lager of Cine Action noted a clear parallel between the killing and destruction of Ben's body by white police and the violence directed at African Americans during the civil rights movement, going on to describe it as a more honest exploration of 1960s America than anything produced by Hollywood. Film historian Gregory Waller identifies broad-ranging critiques of American institutions, including the nuclear family, private homes, the media, the government, and the entire mechanism of civil defense. While film historian Linda Badley saw the film as so horrifying because the monsters were not creatures from outer space or some exotic environment, but just, they're us. The casting of Dwayne Jones as Ben in the lead role, of course, has had another dozen critics earning their crust with insights and commentary on the late 60s impact of a black hero on the big screen. Romero himself was never trying to make a social point, he says. However, Dwayne Jones was the best actor we met to play Ben. If there was a film with a black actor in it, it usually had a racial theme like The Defiant Ones. Consciously, I resisted writing new dialogue because he happened to be black. We'd have shot the script. Perhaps Night of the Living Dead is the first film to have a black man playing the lead role regardless of, rather than because of, his race. You'll make your mind up yourselves and either hide behind the couch, wince at the gore, yell at the masculine infighting, giggle at the amateur zombies, or just deconstruct the whole thing for a social science dissertation. For me, it's just a fucking masterpiece. Astonishingly early, astonishingly accomplished. It's got a knife edge with jumps, shocks, and shudders throughout. Horror and nasties kept going, but very rarely got better than this early classic. Nasty, though? Well, scary, yes. The pounding and the drooling and groaning of all the zombies, all pale moonlight skin, moth-eaten clothes, and those scarred faces are enough to give a sick panic of approaching dread. But, I mean, if we're talking nastiness, which of course will be vicious, gratuitous, gloopy, and rapey, no, not really, nothing like that. Well, not nothing. I mean, the zombies have a touch of the rot and scars. They're a bit gruesome. There's a bloody skull, of course, at the top of those stairs, but nothing you couldn't get in a joke shop or Halloween costumer. But I suppose it's the entrails and the grue that the living dead devour and munch and drip like a KFC bargain bucket that might, for some, be the ew factor. The flesh being devoured is meat dripping with Bosco chocolate syrup, and Pratt & Lambert Vapex War paint was also used for the lot of the blood spatter. But, to be fair, given the beautiful silvery black and white photography, the mess doesn't resemble anything more gory than a Walls Viennetta. Worth banning? Come off it. I mean, is it suitable for young people? I mean, toddlers and teens? No, probably not. But then that's also true of a Swiss Army knife, or a carrier bag, or a smartphone, frankly. No, I mean, I wouldn't put it on at a kid's party for 8-year-olds, but then I wouldn't put on Citizen Kane either. There's nothing corrupting, or particularly disturbing, in any of its glorious frames. Of what are we reminded? Well, as I said, it's got a touch of Psycho, it's got a touch of The Birds, but the trapped and hunted strangers is such now a well-worn trope that it rings bells with all sorts of things. Assault on Precinct 13, Halloween, Die Hard, and every zombie movie from Shaun of the Dead to Scooby-Doo. How to find it? Well, this might take a while, and in honesty, it's for the completists, historians, and you folk with time on your hands. Whole books, dissertations, and indeed legal claims can be written and have been written over the troubled home media history of this 96 minutes of perforated celluloid and its life after the big screen. In short, as best as I can understand and summarise, a number of distributors declined to take on the finished film with Romero's original title in place, Night of the Flesh Eaters, due to it being in old-fashioned black and white, and also, of course, for its gore and those final scene shocks. Eventually, a company called the Walter Reed Organisation agreed to take on the film's distribution, but insisted on a change of title to avoid confusion with a similar movie. So, a new title card with Night of the Living Dead had to be printed to put at the start of the movie. However, a mistake, maybe a sinister conspiracy plot or just carelessness, meant the copyright ownership notice was missing from the title card on the early releases. Oopsie. It took allegedly 4 long years for this legal oversight to be discovered, but US law in the meantime meant no renewed copyright claim meant no legal ownership by the filmmakers, so sadly for them, the movie dropped into the public domain. Any and all folk who wanted to make and sell copies were legally permitted to do so, a legal fight that continued for 20 years. Bad news for George A. Romero and co., but a fruitful 20 years for VHS, DVD, Betamax, Laserdisc and Blu-ray distributors as it became an open season and a license to print varying quality money. Literally hundreds of versions, cuts, prints and edits and colorizations became available to anyone who wanted to buy one or even print their own. The original film is now available to view or download for free on thousands of websites, including YouTube, and according to the US Internet Archive, it's their 3rd most viewed movie with over 3.5 million downloads. We're talking about it here, of course, because it appeared on the grubby, mimeographed list of tapes that constables around the UK were instructed to seize and destroy, as shops and warehouses were raided in the video nasty scare of the early 80s. So it was essentially forbidden to own or sell for a short period in the UK until the BBFC got around to having a fresh look at it and releasing it, uncut of course, Certificate 18 back in 1987. 10 years later, trivia fans, it was then downgraded by the BBFC to just a 15 certificate to keep up with modern sensibilities and teenage expectations. But its removal back then in the mid-80s and then the copyright-free license meant it was cue the floodgates for versions. You name a format, you can now probably find it. Hal Roach Studios released a colorised version in the UK in 1987 after the ban was lifted, making the ghouls a sick green colour. Another colour go was had 11 years later by the nice people at Anchor Bay Entertainment. The film received a VHS release in 1993 through Tempe Video, while Elite Entertainment got a licence to release the Laserdisc version in 94. Finally, a company called Dimension Extreme released a restored print of the film on DVD, but of course I used the word finally incorrectly. Fancy a shoddy 3D version? Well, according to Legend Films founder Barry Sandrew, Night of the Living Dead is meant to be the first entirely live-action 2D film to be converted to 3D, and they released that version theatrically in 2010. Not enough? You perhaps want a version that's been tinkered and kind of fannied about with by one of the original co-writers, some additional scenes maybe, a revised soundtrack, maybe even a bit of backstory on that first killer ghoul? No, of course you don't. However, this didn't stop writer John Russo releasing exactly that in 1999 to almost uniformly poor reviews. If you'd arrived at the 2010 8th Annual Rondo Hatton Classic Horror Awards, you would have seen Night of the Living Dead: Reanimated nominated for Best Independent Production, which was a collaborative animated project done in a wide variety of styles by a variety of talented animation artists from around the world, laid over the original audio, something of a curio perhaps. A fully restored 4K digital version was shown in November 2016 as part of the project called
To Save and Project, the 14th Museum of Modern Art International Festival of Film Preservation.
This same restored, beautiful version was released on Blu-ray by the Criterion Collection in 2018 and on something clearly just made up that day called Ultra HD Blu-ray in 2022. This final release also features a work print edit of the film under the title Night of Anubis in addition to various bonus materials. Something there, I think you'd agree, for everyone. Oh, and the ending? Well, story goes in the original script, Barbara was the only survivor, having been dragged down to the cellar by Ben. After shooting Ben, the posse hear her scream, the sheriff is about to shoot her when he spots a tear trickle down her cheek, realising she is alive as he lowers his weapon. But, nah, screw that. We get Romero's more gut-wrenching choice. If you thought the ending of Darabont's The Mist or the ending of Wolf Creek left you feeling hopeless, brace yourself for this one. Before we talk about what's next on our naughty list, don't forget bonus feature-length episodes with interviews, insights, sequels and all things horror history are available on Let's Get the Band's X-Rated Extras. Subscribe via Patreon or Apple Podcasts. Just a few little somethings from under the counter in brown wrapper for you discerning horror connoisseurs. Next time on Let's Get the Band Back Together.
I will not give up the work of a lifetime simply because you think I'm mad.
Shock you out of your sanity too when the transfusion of terror is performed.
The film Paul Gator from All Movies said had a loopy charm that will be best appreciated by fans of low-budget horror, but of which its own director said later of its impact, "We thought it was one of the worst things we ever did. I can't account for it." 1969's Filipino horror, The Mad Doctor of Blood Island. See you there.